Thank you all for tuning into another episode of the Barrel Chat podcast. This is a podcast that provides an unfiltered look into the craft beer industry from the untrained palates of two outsiders. One thing I realized we forgot to do with the last episode is introduce who the fuck we are.
Yeah, my name's Matt. No.
I am Matt. You are Dustin.
You're right. That's my name.
That it is. And we are Barrel Chat. So if this is your first time listening, we used to talk all thing barrels. We had wine and cider and alcohol, liquor and stuff. I'm sure we'll get back to that at some point, but the main thing we talk about is beer. It doesn't have to come out of a barrel, but a lot of times it does.
Yeah,
so
we have a preference.
Yeah, bourbon, barrel, aged beers.
And soon we'll be talking around a barrel. I'm going to find us a barrel, and we're going to talk around a barrel again.
Exactly. And sticking true to that name, we are drinking Transient Artisan Ale's Junie Swirl, their 2022 version. So this seems to be their big once-a-year release of something that they put into some bourbon barrels and let it sit and then bottle it and then sell it for a good amount of money. And is usually, a big hit, big deal. So before we jump into that beer, we do want to talk about where we got that beer from because we did not get it from Transient. They are located up in Michigan. We are not, so we did not make that drive specifically to go get this. So we got it from a place called A Tap Room, which is located in downtown Indianapolis. For all of you who know the area, they're currently located right next to Smoking Goose. Goose to Market? Why did I say
Goose to
Smoking
Market?
Goose? In the old coal ship building. And then they are moving here in the next month or so down the street a little bit. But we did want to kind of retouch on A Tap Room. We did go over it quite a bit in the last episode, but if this is your first time listening to us, we still want you to kind of get the full experience, and then you can go back and listen to Ardent and figure out if we like that beer or not. So A Tap Room, they are basically a tap room that has a new brewery every single month. They dedicate the entire month to a singular brewery. I guess we should ask how many beers they typically get from said brewery. I didn't think about that until literally just right now.
Yeah, I think it varies quite a bit. Specifically varies based on location of the brewery. And it also varies based on how many beers that specific brewery brews. So like with Transient this month, I was there on, I think, Friday or Thursday of 2 weeks ago, as of this podcast, to grab these bottles and kind of have a pint there with my friend Paul. So we walked in and sat down, and I knew it was Transient, so I knew that I was going to try one of the stouts. They had some Buckleys and stuff on tap, but when you walk in, it's really unique space, really narrow, kind of long. The bar is 95% of the space on the main floor, but it feels like Cheers every time you're in there. Like they may not know you personally, but they're going to be super friendly. They're going to be super nice. Everybody, when you go in there, gets educated about the beer. If you ask a question, they all can speak really clearly about, this is a flavor profile. This is the beer style. This is who brewed it. And to me, that's huge for a tap room, especially when it's not a beer that you see often on shelves in Indiana or you've had maybe before. You want to kind of get an understanding of what that is about, who brewed it, where it's from. So they'll give you all that information. But there they had 10-ish beers on tap from Transient, and then 20 or so bottles, give or take, different cans and bottles and things you could buy as carryout, which is cool.
I remember that at least the one time I've been, they had basically all the beers also for carryout, like cans and bottles and stuff like that. And then they had some other fancy stuff that you could buy. Because I remember there was some $40 bottles of stuff that wasn't even part of that brewery.
I think it was mead. They had some meads and stuff. But as far as the concept of a tap room, it's a very unique concept, especially for Indiana, maybe for the United States. I've never seen another one, but his whole goal is to kind of be a local tap room for non-local breweries, to kind of highlight what they do, bring the information to the public, and really give them a highlight in the state of Indiana and potentially get more distribution in this area. I don't know what sort of loophole he found that allows him to get carry out stuff that you can't sell in a liquor store, but I did find out that liquor stores in the area can buy it while they're in town. So like cons and whatnot can bring in like the transient Junies and stuff. They can just buy it while a tap room has like the month-long event with them. Same thing with 450 North's like corn maze. So right after the corn maze, cons had a bunch of really crazy sours and stuff that were from a bunch of breweries that we don't get anything from because they could buy it while they were here for the festival, because it's illegal for them to come in for one event and not have the ability to sell it to the local liquor stores.
That's interesting.
I talked to the guy from cons. I was like, how did you guys get Imprint or whatever it was that I was looking at? And he was like, oh, let me tell you the story. And it was all about the 450. But he also said that when a tap room and Eric have people in, they can get that beer on their shelves as well, which just allows for more exposure. And they can also say, hey, go check it out at a tap room if you want to try it on draft.
Nice. I like that. I should have you send him a text and tell him to get Edmund's O's.
I sent him a message about Transient, and he was like, it's already on our list. I also said, hey, you should do invasive species, because God, that was insanely good when we had it. And I don't go to Florida often. I also don't have many people that live in Florida that I know. But that was great. So we can definitely mention Edmund's Oast as well.
Edmund's Oast, for those of you who don't know, slight tangent. They are located out in Charleston, South Carolina. It's my favorite brewery in the country so far. It supplanted Belching Beaver. Yeah. And Belching Beaver, for anyone who used to listen to the old show, y'all know how much I love that place. But Edmund's Oast just knocks it out of the park with literally every beer they do. And I only found them because we go to South Carolina every year. And I just stumbled upon them in Total Wine. And I was like, hey, all these beers I've bought in a can are fantastic. Let's go down to the actual brewery. All of it's fantastic. And now, 5 years later, still drinking them. It's the only thing I drink when we're down there.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happened with how I found invasive species. We stopped somewhere in Florida, and I was like, I could go for a brewery. Let's, find a cool brewery. And I pulled up the location, and I was like, there's like 15 right here. It's like, this one's got a cool name, invasive species. That's kind of a cool name. Bet they have a cool hat or something like that. And walked in, and I was like, well, they have like 45 beers on tap. Holy crap. Cool. Let's do like 2 flights. Honey, you're driving the rest of this trip.
So to close out about a tap room, they are moving at the end of February. So if you do go, just know that at the end of February, they're going to be moving. It sounds like basically right down the street.
He's got the address, I think, down in there.
Yeah, 2457 North Delaware. I have no idea where that is. I probably should have Googled it.
But Google will tell you where that is.
Yeah, but I mean, to at least give people an idea. But it does sound like they're going to add in a family-friendly area, some arcades, some pinballs, stuff like that. I'm assuming it's going to be a much bigger space because right now it's pretty small. And they mentioned that their anniversary festival is currently slated for April 22nd. So you'll want to make sure you follow them on social media. So that way you can see all the announcements, official details, and then it sounds like it's going to be a ticketed event that is going to go on sale at the end of this month.
We should definitely go. So
yes,
if we can. So if you're there and we're there, come see us. Come chat with us. But I can only imagine the quality of brewery that's going to come to a festival with like this.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong. So let's hop into this beer. This is Transient Artisan Ales, Junie Swirl 2022. This is an Imperial Stout or a double stout, whichever way you want to refer to it as. Once again, Transient does not provide really much of details for their beers. It is something that I really hate, but they did have this Junie aged in Eastern Kill Blizz breakfast rye barrels with Madagascar vanilla beans. I went doing my research to figure out what all that meant.
What were these words?
What does any of this mean? So, Eastern Kill, I assume I'm saying that right. Probably not. Distillery.
Calais, it's Kille. So
Calais.
I assume it's Calais. If it's kill, whatever, it's got an E at the end of it. So that's why he's questioning whether he's saying it right or not.
Yeah. They are located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They used to be known as Gray Skies until 2020. You have no idea how confusing that was when I was researching stuff. Because everything was about Gray Skies. And then all of a sudden...
It just switched.
And then all of a sudden I started finding about their Eastern Kill, however you say it. And then I found an article that said they switched names. So what they do is their base rye, which is what this is made with, they let that sit for 2 years, and then they finish that in a maple syrup barrel, and it's about like 4 to 6 months. Those maple syrup barrels, I found out, come from a completely separate company. It's a gourmet food business called Bliss, which, and it's BLIS, because life is short. I like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
And they specialize in bourbon barrel-aged sauces. So they have all kinds of stuff. I looked at their website.
We should buy some of that stuff.
It looks awesome. Like, straight awesome. I probably will buy something because I'm now curious. Especially maple syrup.
I'd wear a cool hat that said, like, Bliss on the front and the back.
Yeah, and it's short. Like capital B, capital L, lowercase I, capital S. So
of course it's lowercase I.
Yeah.
You know, pulling that Apple game right there.
So that's what is happening here. And then they're taking the barrel that was like the finishing barrel, and they're putting Junie in that. Now, I couldn't find any information on how long they barrel aged Junie or anything like that. So we're just going off what we have. When it comes to, how big this beer is, 13.5% ABV. So this is a big boy, which it should be, but it's a big boy. According to Untapped, it has no IBUs. And it has a 4.52 as of 2 weeks ago when I looked this up. Had 41 total ratings, or 34 total ratings, sorry. 41 total check-ins. Not everybody rates.
Did you look at, like, Junie Swirl without a number after it?
No.
So I don't know how much that differs. I don't know if they make this every year or if it's like a one-off. So, like, is there a Junie Swirl that's not 2022?
I'm pretty sure there's a Junie Swirl each year. I don't know if there's like a base Junie Swirl.
So while he's looking at that, on here, the bottle itself, I'm just kind of looking at it here, but I always really gravitate towards their stouts when they're on shelves when I see them because they all have dogs on them. They have Buckley, they have Junie. I assume those are the brewers or the owners' dogs' names. But on here it says, life for a puppy shouldn't be so rough, which is fantastic. It's kind of like a weird artistic style. It almost reminds me of Where the Wild Things Are. If you were to look at Where the Wild Things Are, and instead of having the weird mask, you just put a dog head on top of it, it looks super similar. But it says here they are Eastern Calais breakfast rye barrels aged Imperial Rye Stout with salted caramel, violet sky cocoa nibs. I'm guessing that's the brand, and vanilla beans.
Okay, well that is more than what it says on their Untapped, unless I read that. So Junie Swirl. Oh, there is a Junie. Junie is an imperial stout with chocolate and salted caramel.
Okay.
11.5%. Has a rating of 4.04 on here. So that tracks. That sounds like a good base beer.
That tracks. Like, that's what I would want the base beer to be, is a good base beer. Because if you've listened or know us from the past, if you can't make the base beer good, it doesn't matter how much shit you throw in the beer. I'm not going to be impressed with it.
Yeah. It does look like the first Junie Swirl was from last year, or it just wasn't in Untapped.
Okay.
But that's it. Not many people checking these things in. Still kind of curious. We talked about it episode 1. Does anybody really use Untapped anymore? Because there was 15 total check-ins of Junie Swirl 2021.
Yeah, so that's interesting to me. Maybe do they not make a large quantity of this, and it's a very limited release? Do a lot of people, as our old co-host Ant would say, sleep on Transient, so they don't really know much about Transient if it's not like if you're not from Michigan or nearby? Or has Untapped lost its crown where people just don't give a shit anymore about checking beer in?
I'm gonna guess the third one. Because there's not really much of a social aspect to it. Like, cool, you check something in. What does it really matter?
It needs to have like more interaction, and I think that'd be cool. I don't know how to do it, so I can't help you make more money on Tapped. If I could, I'd work for you.
Yeah,
because it'd be a cool company to work for. But
I think the idea, and I don't know if it's still used in breweries or not, but like having that information on a digital display, and you could walk up and see like, oh, that's a 4.5. I'm going to do it. But that also it has a negative connotation too, because if you walk up and you see a beer's got a 3.5, you may not get that beer.
So Indiana City is the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
That was the first one I thought too.
They had it on the screen, but also like if I was sitting there and I checked in one of their beers,
it would scroll
at the bottom to say, my Untapped handle checked in Crush and Roulette at XXX, and that was kind of unique. Like, that's cool. If you could get that set up in more breweries or even at more bars, I think that would be a really cool use to make it a little bit more social.
Exactly. So jumping into the beer style here, doing a little bit of history research to it. The term Imperial simply refers to a big beer, both in terms of flavor and alcohol. The term is used interchangeably with double or strong, and it refers to any style of beer brewed with an extra dose of grains and hops to produce a higher ABV. So this one's jumping from 11.5 to 13.5. Not that big of a jump, but a 13.5 is a pretty big beer in and of itself. This style in particular has a pretty long heritage, but as I found, it's not really one that is continuous. So the roots date back to when they used to make an English porter, so Guinness for most people, what you can think of, and you basically just made that a stronger version. They would do that for exporting.
Yeah, so that it handled the shipments.
Ships, yeah, it stayed. So, when you get to America, your beer is still good.
Same thing with IPAs. Like, it's why that exists.
Exactly. But apparently these beers became very popular with the Russian imperial court of Catherine the Great, who was the Empress of Russia, which is where we get Russian Imperial Stout. Had no idea.
Interesting.
How many Russian Imperial Stouts did we do on the previous version of the show? And I never found that in research.
Only a few. I mean, one episode alone with Kevin, we probably should have died from Russian Imperial Stouts. So,
but it's just like I've always wondered where does Russian Imperial come from? Now we know. Just because of that. So it kind of died off because like we went through all the turmoil of people getting rid of beers across the world and stuff, and obviously you didn't want a bunch of drunk people all the time, so that's why session beers exist, because that was what beers originally were. You could have like 5 and go home and not be drunk. But nowadays, that's not the case. So the traditional English style, but it's obviously become much more popular here in America. And I guess the rest is history there. BJCP wise, obviously this isn't going to match exactly, because this isn't just a standard double stout, imperial stout. Like, there's a bunch of adjuncts in it. But it should probably be at least somewhat close, because Junie is an imperial. It just doesn't have, I think, right?
Yes, I would assume so. At 11%.
Yeah, it's an imperial. I just wanted to make sure.
I hope so at 11%. Otherwise, damn.
Yeah, so it's an imperial. So, like, Junie would want to match what the BJCP is looking for if it was grading it.
Yeah, scent.
But then you're adding in all the extra stuff and barrel aging it, which is getting other flavors.
Double barreling it.
Yeah. So overall, an intensely flavored, big, dark ale with a wide range of flavor balances and regional interpretations. Roasty burnt malt with deep dark or dried fruit flavors.
It's hard to say. I
and
think
a
we've stumbled
warming,
on that before.
Bittersweet finish. Despite the intense flavors, the components need to meld together to create a complex, harmonious beer, not a hot mess. Boy, have we had our fair share of hot mess.
We have had
Imperial Stouts.
Had several hot messes, but I'm gonna start with saying this is not a hot mess. This is exactly what I expect from Transient when it comes to dark beers. But as like overall, it's super rich, super bold, nice and thick. If you know Matt and I from any other podcasts that you've listened to us on, we want our big Imperial Stouts to taste like big Imperial Stouts. I want it to be thick. I don't want that like no thin like mouthfeel. I want shit to linger because that's literally what this beer style is supposed to do. It's supposed to coat your mouth, be thick, be lingering. And so I'm going to jump into the nose here a little bit because I just had to spin it to get it back up. But there's a ton of like milk chocolate almost on the nose with some like caramel hits. I really wish there was some salt on the nose. I mean, that's my only complaint with the nose because I think that would make it super unique. Because I always like a beer with salt, like a salted caramel or a salted dark chocolate or something. I've always liked that type of style.
I do feel like you get that in the flavor.
Oh, it's there in the flavor.
Not in the nose.
But it's like milk chocolate, almost like Nesquik on the nose. Like it's super milk chocolate.
Appearance-wise, color may range from very dark reddish brown to jet black. This
pretty
is
dark.
Jet black.
Yeah.
This is your grandpa dyed his hair at home jet black.
This is motor oil, 10W30.
Yeah. Let's see here. Deep tan to brown to dark brown head. So just like with Ardent, spoiler alert, no head on this. I mean, there was literally no head on this beer.
Yeah, and even
at least
when
Ardent had something to look at for
even
5
when
seconds.
I swirl it, it doesn't do much in the fancy glass. But the little bits of head that I do see are like a light tan, which is what it should be. But it is, I don't think it's under carb because I get a lot of carb in the drinking. Maybe there's too many adjuncts that kill the head. I had that conversation with Manahan from Copacetic, and because we made a beer together and it turned into where it didn't hold a head, it just dissipated super fast. But it was a Mexican hot chocolate porter. And it just had so many adjuncts in it and shit that he said he thought that the adjuncts killed the head. And one thing that jumps out to me here is anybody who's had like Bourbon County's coffee or some of these other like heavy hitting coffee stouts, I can see the like oily substance on the like top of the beer. You can see some of the residue that's like the oily residue. And that's exactly like I've seen with all the others that are those big hitters. So it's just, it looks like an oil slick on the top of the glass.
Yeah, that I don't think I've ever noticed that before.
I only remember talking about it with Kevin when we talked about the coffee from Bourbon County and how
I don't remember any of those episodes.
And I think this wasn't even part of an episode.
Yeah, that makes sense then.
But it's super oily, which is interesting. But you can see some of that on this.
Oh, yes,
the top of this beer.
There's a part of me that's grossed out by that. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm sure it's just from like hops and adjuncts and stuff like that, but like there's something that's a little gross to that. Aroma. Rich and complex with variable amounts of roasted grains, maltiness, fruity esters, hops, and alcohol.
I don't get a whole lot of alcohol on the nose. It's super sweet on the nose though.
It's not hot at all.
Yeah, so this does stray from the guidelines, but because it is an adjunct version, it's probably fitting into the regional differences.
The malt aroma can be subtle to rich and barley wine like. I don't get barley wine sweet.
No, this nose is milk chocolate.
So specialty malt characters which is caramel, which I do think
Yeah,
there's a little bit in there. It definitely reminds me of those like little caramel candies,
like Werther's.
No. That like actual square,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
melt in your mouth
Got it.
caramel candies. Yeah, I'm like an 80-year-old man when it comes to candy.
Man, my favorite like chocolate, and I don't get to do it very often because of the lactose and bullshit. But is Reasons.
Oh yes,
And this reminds me
Oh, God.
of a Reason with some extra flavors to it. Like there's like the levels of chocolate that's in it reminds me a lot of Reasons.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that.
I get down on Reasons and could crush a bag way too fast.
Yep, that's why I don't buy them, because they only sell them in a bag, and I can't. I have no.
Hey, where's my little roll at? Give me like a
roll
5-pack or a
roll.
10-pack or something. Where same thing with Oreos. Damn it! I know this is going to be a tangent, but same thing with Oreos. Give me a sleeve, not a whole goddamn pack.
Yep, you're not wrong. Flavor wise, rich, deep, complex, and frequently quite intense, with variable amounts of roasted malt grains, maltiness, fruity esters, hop bitterness, and flavor. What the hell does that mean? I'm assuming hop
It
flavor.
tastes like something.
And alcohol. Medium to aggressively high bitterness. I love the aggressively high bitterness. Moderate to aggressively high roasted malt grain flavors. Slightly burnt grain, burnt currant, tarry character. I definitely get the tarry.
So this is another situation where, for the most part, this style of this version of beer will wildly differ from some of the flavor descriptions. But it definitely does have like the burnt tarry, like a thick feel to it.
This is definitely like molasses.
Yeah, but man, it's got so much flavor. So much flavor.
Malt backbone can be balanced and supportive to rich and barley wine-like, and may optionally show some supporting caramel, bready, and toasty flavors. I definitely feel like I get that. The caramel and kind of a little bit of bready. I definitely feel like I can pull a little bit of that. It could be a placebo effect from reading it, but
no, there's so I get a like heavy finish. So the upfront flavor is like chocolates and almost like burnt notes and like the roasted flavors. But on the very far lingering right after you finish your drink, there's so much salted caramel at the end.
Yeah.
It is mind blowing.
Yeah, it's like if you took a Reason and put salted caramel inside of it.
Yeah, like the middle part is salted caramel.
Yes.
Yeah, is exactly what it is.
Kind of what that, yeah.
It just, on the very back of your tongue, on the very back of your palate, it lingers and you can taste sea salt and caramel.
Yep.
Like you're eating a salted caramel. No, it literally hits it out of the park for that.
Yep. I like it. Mouthfeel. Full to very full bodied and chewy and velvety. Yes, it matches all.
Yeah, it definitely hits them all. I mean, when you drink it, like our buddy Ant used to, where you go, where he effervesces it. We'll have to tag him in this episode, but it does. There's a lot of creaminess. There's a lot of like depth to the mouthfeel, and it doesn't disappoint for thickness, which is big for me in a stout.
It does say that a well-conditioned version, the alcohol can be deceptive. I would definitely say that in this. This does not taste 13.5%.
This would get you in trouble. This is one of those you'd be like, oh yeah, give me another pint.
Yeah.
And you go, well, that was a bad call.
Yeah, no, that is definitely true. Should not be syrupy. Definitely not syrupy in my opinion.
Pretty, like, man, super smooth flavors.
Yeah. Carbonation may be low to moderate.
I mean, as far as like head goes, yes. But if you take a drink, there is still a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't taste
in it.
flat. But I feel like it's close to me.
I really want more head on it. I want the head, head, y'all. I want the head to be retaining, because it could be all of like the oil substances and things from all the adjuncts that takes that away. But this is that to me is the only place that this beer falls short. The flavor profiles are there, the color's there, the effervescence is there, the carbonation is there when you're drinking it. The flavors are beautiful, but looking at it, it looks flat.
Yeah.
Like,
And I don't get the carbonation like you. I think it's more carbonated than some other ones we've had, but like
drink it. So do the weird like roll your tongue shit that Ant did, and it'll kick the like.
yeah, I want it to be
Always there. Yeah.
And this could be, I mean, I haven't drank a ton of big beers in a very long time, so like I got to kind of relearn a lot of this. But there's just something about the mouthfeel that's just like tiny bit off. Like, and it's I think it's more personal opinion than anything else. Like, there's just something
it could be
that
a little better.
yes,
And
like you're about like 2-3 points away from being somewhat perfect.
yeah, being on the like treehouse mouthfeel level
Yeah.
where you do get that like robust thickness on
Yeah.
every drink. But as far as dark beers that are like these heavily adjunct styles recently that I've had, this is right up there with some of the big hitters that everything is there. It is what it says it should be. It's unique. It's brewed well. I want to try Junie, like regular Junie. I think it'd be fun to try.
So do I.
But excuse me, they're all there. It's I like it. I'll review it like Matt. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I don't like it. Like, I would still buy more of this, but I think it could be a little bit better. And it does feel like maybe there's, spoiler alert for episode 2 if you didn't listen to it. It feels like there might be a carbonation issue with Transient.
Or like bottling problems.
Or bottling. Yes, a bottling condition carbonation issue.
I wonder if that's why a lot of breweries have switched to cans.
Well, I know that there's a CO2
Well, there
shortage,
was a CO2 shortage for a while. Now, I don't know if that's still a
it's
thing.
still going on. Yeah.
So are you guys under CO2ing because you're like short on it? I don't know
how that works. That would be interesting to find out. I'm sure we could find
we just
somebody.
talk to Sean.
Yeah, there's got to be somebody out there who
or
runs that and could tell us what they're doing. Yeah. All right, man. Tier list time. So, if you are new or just forgot, we have 5 tiers. S tier is basically exceptional, the greatest thing we've ever had in our lives.
Superclass.
It is something that you will shout from a mountaintop. Then there's A, B, C, and D tier.
And then sometimes we're going to kick your ass off and you don't get to be on there.
Yeah, if you don't meet any of those, you're in beer hell or whatever we want to call it. But we haven't got there yet. So, where are we placing this beer?
If the carbonation was on point, it'd be a high S. I think with some of the carbonation fails, I would do a super low S or a high A. Because I do think the profile's there. I do think the flavors are there. It's a unique beer. I would want to go back. I would drink it on tap. I would buy another bottle of it. So like 20-ish, maybe? Or like 18?
Well, so 20 is last of A.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was thinking 2 per.
Yeah, sorry. and for we should probably explain that. There's 10 beers in each tier, so essentially it's a top 50 list, if you may.
So like 12 to 15 would probably be like the ideal bracket range.
Okay.
Because I don't think it hits S tier because I've had significantly better not better versions of this beer, but styles that like blend still sticks out in my head.
Yes.
And like the very first Crush and Roulette and some of the other things that just are over the moon. And I don't quite think this makes it there. And it could be the viscosity, or it could be I don't know.
Well, and one thing I guess we didn't even talk about, and this could, I don't know if this is a good or bad thing. We didn't even mention the maple. Like, this is finished in maple syrup.
It does have a little bit of maple.
Yeah,
but
there's like a little bit.
It doesn't hit me over the head like I want with like CBS or
whenever I think of maple, I always think of
Pinko.
flat 12s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that maple pinko was one of
shout
that
out to
was
Sean
the
still.
best thing I've like maple barrel wise best thing I've ever had.
Yeah, like definitely. It doesn't have like when I think of maple barrels, I think of like maple pancakes, like pancakes with maple syrup on them, and I don't get that, but it does have like some the sweetness that I think may have come from that. And it could be as simple as like the other flavors have overtaken that like maple and it just kind of took the sweetness.
I think for me it's a back half of A. And even that feels high. I like this. I don't love it. I feel like the more I've drank of it, the less I like it. And not in a bad way. And it's not like as it warms up, newer flavors have come out or anything. It's something with the carbonation. There's just something off to me. And I can't figure out what it was because I'm not smart enough in the beer world to know what it is. But there's something. And I think that's what's just driving me nuts. Is just like can't figure out what it is. It's not a flavor, and it's not necessarily the mouthfeel, because I think it fits exactly what we always have preached about. Is if you're gonna give us a Russian Imperial or an Imperial Stout, like make that shit thick. This meets all that criteria. There's just something missing out of it. My thought was like low A, high B. So I feel like if
20?
we kind of come to a consensus, I think starting it around 15 is fine. That's middle A.
I mean, I'm fine with conceding to like 18 or 19.
Yeah, I feel like 18 is right. In all honesty, like it's not a B tier beer because like it does hit a lot of the notes that you want it to and that it should. It's just missing something. Like this should be an S tier beer.
I want to try it on draft.
Yeah.
Because something tells me that it would be an S tier beer on draft. But something in the bottling or something in like how it was handled, it came to me cold, and I took it straight to the house and put it back in the refrigerator. Didn't get warm, and then brought it out here, let it get to like room-ish temperature where it should be drank, I believe. Oh, what the weird. So they had a label on what temperature you should drink the other one at from them, Ardent. But they don't have one on here, which is super strange. But it was warmer, so it wasn't like refrigerated cold.
But usually they bring out more flavors as the Russian Imperial or the Imperials do get warmer and stuff. I it's like I don't want to shit on it because it's a good beer. I would tell people to try this beer.
Yeah, for sure. Try it.
Yeah. Try it. But there's just something for me personally that's just missing. And maybe it's just me getting back into this world and I'm misremembering what some of this stuff tastes like. And I think that's going to be interesting as we go along because it could move up in the rankings. You know, that was something we discussed in episode 1 of.
Yeah, something could fall behind it.
Yeah.
And it needs to move up.
And it starts to push up. Possible. Yeah. Like we drink something and, you know, for me, it could be like, oh, so all of these kind of have this similar mouthfeel and I'm just misremembering what we used to drink. It could very well happen. And that's what I love about these S tier rankings too, is, you know, that's back-to-back episodes where we're kind of a little off of each other, but like, you know, you got to kind of compromise on where you think it is. I think that makes it a lot more fun. I think it's more fun than just like, oh, this is a 7. Like, what does that even mean? And I think as we get more beers on here, that's really going to make this a lot of fun. If you've had this beer, once we get it posted up on Instagram and stuff, which if you're hearing this episode, we probably got a post up on Instagram. Drop in the comments. Let us know. What do you think about the Junie Swirl 2022 if you've had it, especially if you dropped by a tap room and had it. I'd be curious to know, especially on tap it there, like, is it different?
Yeah, so I don't think they have any of the Junies on tap.
Okay. I mean, that would make sense.
They have a bunch of the Buckleys, which is another like dark stout version. Okay. So I don't know if Buckley is what they do in like draft form, and they do Junie on bottles. We've had some Buckley before, but I will say that the Buckleys that I had on tap were on point, like fucking awesome.
Nice.
But I didn't see any Junies on tap. But nevertheless, you could buy a bottle, or you could, buy a bottle there. I think they'll probably open it for you, and because they're cold, and let you drink it there. So if you do get out there and you want to try Junie Swirl, if you're like a pastry stout type of person and want to enjoy it, just try it. Let us know what you think. It'd be great to have some conversations to be able to get some feedback on. And if, it's a S tier to you and we're pissing on your parade, then let us know.
Yeah. Tell me what I'm missing. That is what I always love, is tell me what I'm missing about this beer, because I feel like I'm missing something or it's missing something. It's one of the two. And if I can be better educated, great. So that's going to do it for the show. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. That's at Barrel Chat. If you are looking for ways somehow, even though you're listening to this episode, to find it on our podcast on different apps, or you want to send it to a friend and you know what podcast app they use, our link tree, which is in the link in our bio of Instagram, has all kinds of different links to the different podcast apps. If you're on like Amazon Music or something like that, we're on there. Just kind of look around. If we're not on the podcast app that you use for some reason, like your main podcast app, let us know. I'll try and get it added. Usually it's not that hard, but we're on most of the big apps, so we should be fine there. If you do enjoy our show, we'd ask that you leave us a rating. 5 stars is the best. That's what we strive for. If you don't like our show, drop us a 4-star rating. Either way, what that does is that helps bring in new listeners who haven't heard of us. It puts us on like ranking lists and stuff like that, and just kind of promotes our show. If somebody else is listening to a beer podcast, it may pop ours in of like, other people are listening to this one. That just helps us out a little bit, and it gives somebody else a chance to decide whether they love or hate us. That's the way I look at it. If you got a specific beer that you would like for us to review, like you're like, hey man, go do Sun King Cream Ale, drop us a DM on Instagram.
I got something for you
at barrelchatpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what beer you would like to hear. We try and say, make it something that we can easily obtain. And not just like go down to a brewery to get it, but like, there's a bunch of Total Wines and stuff like that. So if it's something that you have found pretty easily in the state, let us know. We'll do our best to get it. If it's something from out of state, we can definitely try to get it, because I'm always open to trying new breweries, because that is how I found the 2 that I love the most simply by just trying them randomly. If you have a beer that you want us to try, if you're a home brewer, we had a on Instagram having a conversation with a home brewer, said he made an Italian Pilsner, and he was like, it didn't.
He
turn
said
out
it failed, but
yeah, but it's like, if you're a home brewer and you want somebody to try it, we'll just try it in general if you want. We don't have to talk about it on the show. But if you want us to review it on the show, let us know.
Looking at you, Grissom Brothers.
Yeah. But we'll do that. Get your name out there, good or bad. If you want the feedback, if you don't, that's fine too. But if you got like a rare beer, you got a beer that you got extras of that are not from the state and you want us to try, let us know. If you're out on vacation, you're like, I bet the Barrel Chat boys will like this. Bring it home. Let us know. We'll even spot you the $5-10, whatever it may be. That is perfectly fine with us. We don't ask for free stuff at all, because we want to support all those breweries out there as well.
And I want to be blunt. I want to be bold about things, because if I'm, getting free stuff, the chances of you being a little like pandering are going to be way higher than if I'm paying for it, buying it out of my account, my money, that we don't have sponsors. We don't have anything right now that can pay for any of that. Now, with that said, should you want to sponsor the podcast, you could hit us up and let us know.
Talking to you, Sean.
Both Seans. Talking to you, both Seans, Webster and Manahan.
Just anybody. But hey, they know what they're getting into as well. If you hear the show, we had a bad copacetic beer. That was my fault. But
Matt done fucked it up.
But we don't hide behind those either. We will definitely tell you if we think it's bad or not. But with that, that's going to do it for episode 3. Thank you all for tuning in. And we will see you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.